It should. It's going to be great.
No, you may want to leave it like.
Oh, leave it.
Otherwise, it'll be your face will be
Yes, I am
obstructed.
short. Do these have a mute button that I should be aware of? Or will
I
it
will.
teach
I
us
will
all?
instruct you. Yeah,
Okay.
on how to do that.
Perfect.
Pam. Pam. You push that down. If we had them down so they won't be in front of your face.
Like that? Okay, great. Thank you. How are you
Here, I
doing,
was
Ralph?
trying to schedule it.
Pardon?
How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Thank you.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
We'll just drive it a little bit, you know? It's okay. My steering wheel and I. What's your name? I like the car. Somebody. What's your name? Oh, there you go.
No, recent 3-5, but 35.
Oh, no. Can we please look each other in the face? Look at us.
That would have been really terrible. Everyone else just didn't get the memo. You guys didn't get the burgundy memo? You guys all got the black. The black
She's
memo.
just talking about.
Oh, Amy.
Okay, let's all do
We are
There
like,
you
this
go.
isn't like
Thank
the
you.
coordinated email ticket.
The girls in burgundy and the guys in black.
It'll be on what again?
On the YouTube.
So it's not on 991?
Well, it will be.
And the YouTube page, I should say YouTube page. Of what?
Beloit Access.
On Beloit Access. YouTube page. On Beloit Access. I'm going to begin. Good evening. I am Ralph Berkeley. As moderator this evening, I welcome each candidate running for a seat on the Beloit School Board, as well as members of the audience to the 2019 School Board Candidates Forum. The forum tonight is sponsored by the Beloit League of Women Voters and the NAACP Beloit Chapter. The forum this evening will be taped and aired before the April 2nd election on cable channel 991 and YouTube page on Beloit Access channel. Let me briefly outline the format for this evening's forum. For the first part of the forum, questions were prepared by the sponsoring organizations. As moderator, I will direct a question to a specific candidate. Questions will be selected randomly by the moderator. The second part of the forum is designed to allow each candidate the opportunity to respond to any question previously asked. The third part of the forum is the fun part for the audience. Audience members are invited to write questions on the cards provided. A member of the sponsoring organizations will collect the cards. Audience questions should not be of a personal nature. Finally, at the end of the audience question-answer period, each candidate will be given the opportunity to give closing remarks. At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce each candidate. The following candidates are running for 4 school board positions. To my immediate right, Ms. Tori Champany. Did I get that right?
You did.
Thank you. Next is Ms. Pam Charles, Ms. Amy Christofferson, Ms. Megan Miller, Mr. Philip L. Van Landingham Jr., and I don't believe Mr. Walls, Joe Walls, is present with us this evening. Next is Mr. John Winkleman and Mr. John C. Wong. Welcome, candidates. We will now begin the first part of the forum. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to their question. The timekeeper in front of you will keep you within the allotted time. If you notice on your microphone to your right side, there's a button. If you push that button, that will activate your microphone. And also the red light up above your microphone will let you know that it's on. You can either keep it on all evening, or you can only have it on when you are asked a question. Again, let me repeat this. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to their question. The timekeeper in front of you will keep you within the allotted time. The cards that I'm holding up are numbered 1 through 8. Each number corresponds to a specific question. Ms. Chapany has agreed to mix the cards up for me. Would you please do that?
Sure.
Thank you. And the first question will go to Mr. Wong. It's your lucky day. From a board perspective, what is the key to retaining staff and improving staff morale?
I'm sorry. Could you repeat that again? Sorry.
Yes, I will. From a board perspective, what is the key to retaining staff and improving staff morale?
First of all, I'd like to thank the groups to putting this together. It's greatly appreciated, and I'm sure everybody here will hopefully get a lot out of this. I truly believe that we've had a major problem of retention in this district for the past few years here, and having anywhere from 75 to 125 teachers leave each year is really devastating to the classrooms. Teacher retention is of utmost importance, and I truly believe that engaging the staff members to a greater extent is imperative. I truly believe that we have so much talented staff within our district that we're not tapping into at this time. And I know this firsthand. I've been chair of the ad hoc committee for behavior and discipline over the last few months, and one of the comments that I've heard over and over is that the staff members that have been involved have said for once they feel like their voice is being heard. And so that's one thing that's been given me continued hope that continuing down this path will be beneficial for our district as a whole. I also come into this line of work, I guess, coming from the trenches myself. I'm in sales, and I consider myself to be on the line itself, and that's where I see the staff working on a day in and day out basis. So I think supporting staff in any way that we possibly can and providing them greater support than we have in the past is going to be the key to retention and actually attracting more staff. So I'll finish up there.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. The next question, Mr. Winkleman, will you please answer this question? What is the main challenge facing the school district today, and how will you resolve that challenge?
There are many main challenges. Main challenge. I think the main challenge right now revolves around educating all children, right? I think that we reach a point right now where some students are having success and some students are not. And I think we have to be able to reach out and find out why the district is at a place where not all students are thriving in the district that should be welcoming every child that walks in the door. And when we do that, then we help them reach that educational goal that they can reach, help them find that curiosity that they can find, help them reach out and think carefully about what they're learning, and engage that learning, right? Engage that learning in ways that will stick within them, right? Not just memorizing and walking away, but will stick within them to be able to carry that on as they go on to work, as they go on to more education, as they join our community. And so I think it's a piece of the puzzle that says, how do we grow our academic success, right? We talk about closing achievement gaps and showing greater success, better graduation rates. All of that comes down to how do we engage the students that are in our district, and how do we make them feel comfortable and figure out how they will thrive within the district. And we're not doing that now. We know that not all students thrive in the district as it's working right now. That is a major challenge for us, and we need to reach out to do that. It is a must. We must do that piece of the puzzle. And people have had great ideas. I'm looking forward to the new superintendent coming in, and we'll be able to bring new ideas when he comes. And it'll be up to the board to be able to support that person, to be able to make that happen, and also to be able to support our teachers as we engage them in the conversations that John talked about.
Thank you, Mr. Winkleman. The next question will go to Mr. Van Lendingham. Please answer this question. What exactly is the role of the Board of Education in the school district and the community?
First off, thanks for allowing me this opportunity to come out and give my platform. So I appreciate that. The role of the board is to come up with the policies and procedures that the district sees that are functional that we need to implement via the community's voice or the student staff voice. We need to come up with policies and procedures and hold those lower positions, i.e. the superintendent, the teachers, the administrators, hold those people accountable for their actions and uphold those standards and those policies. If we don't have that standard in policies and procedures in place and hold those individuals accountable, we get what we have for the last 5 to 7 years within our district, and that's, discipline issues, teacher retention issues, school safety issues via the classroom and the hallways. We have to come up with policies and procedures and stick to those procedures and policies, uphold those. If they don't uphold the policies and procedures put in place, we fail as a district, but we fail our community. We fail our community members, our students, our staff, the people that put us in these elected positions. We failed them, and we've had far too much of that. So we need to come up with stern policies and procedures and make sure we hold the right people accountable for those actions. We can't give the education to our students if we don't have those policies and procedures in place and we don't hold the people accountable for their actions.
Thank you. No. The question was asked if anyone could rebut or answer the question, and the instructions were that each person would have an individual question, and then next you would have the opportunity to ask questions, answer questions that were previously asked. Thank you. Ms. Miller, this is your question. Question. Please identify at least 3 specific actions that can be implemented to reduce the number of students leaving the school district.
Thank you. I want to also take a moment to thank our organizers for this event, and thanks for having us here tonight. One specific action I think that we can do to, I believe we're increasing and retaining students. Is that to clarify the question?
Would you like for me to repeat the question?
Oh yeah, if you wouldn't mind, thanks.
No problem. Please identify at least 3 specific actions that can be implemented to reduce the number of students leaving the school district.
Got it. Thank you for that. I think the number one action that we can take is to create policies that encourage early literacy and ongoing responsiveness to the literacy issues that we see in our school. One reason I've heard from people that they're dissatisfied with the district is that there's a perception that there are just, so many students that struggle and teachers can't handle this and that. And I feel like as a parent and as a former teacher, there are so many wonderful opportunities through interventions to address those specific student issues. I think that a lot of the behavior issues that people like to complain about, the discipline issues that people like to complain about really boil down to making sure that each student feels supported and able to learn and perform well in class. Students come to school wanting to learn, and if we address the key issues that prevent them from learning, namely I feel literacy and quantitative reasoning skills, from pre-K on, I feel like that would really increase student retention, and it would increase the more positive perception of our classrooms and how they function in our community. So I suppose that would be one specific action, would just be to lean on that RTI, or response to intervention model for literacy, and make that a K-12 process. Another specific action I think that we can take would be to take the things that we're already doing well, like our theater programs, music. All of these things are things that students rely on and want to be engaged in. When we talk about, budgets and things like that, we often, we've heard about welcome centers, there's all kinds of bells and whistles, but what it comes down to is students want to be in school so they can find their homes and find their places to express themselves. So I feel like investing in the great things that we already have, and then engaging our students and families to find out what more we could be doing to support those interests for our students is very important. I know that to build on that, I guess the third action I would take would be in response to giving students opportunities to get kind of job skills and work experience. There's some dissatisfaction I've heard amongst other parents that students are coming out of high school essentially not prepared for the world, and they think that maybe by going to another school that they're going to get a better education or get better prepared. And so I think that by giving, kind of increasing the already college opportunities, apprenticeship opportunities and soft skills, like building those into our education system, would speak well to those concerns and maybe retain more students.
Thank you.
Yep.
Ms. Christopherson, the next question will be answered by you. And this is a long question, so.
Okay.
Dr. Childs, interim superintendent, recently stated in an interview with the Beloit Daily News dated January 4th, 2019, that, and I quote, "Historically, the school board has been micromanaging and over-involved in district operations without the requisite expertise. The school board's," and unquote, "the school board's ethics policy states that no board member shall interfere with the administration of the school district as an individual or undermine the administrative, teaching, secretarial, or custodial staff by reverting to political or coercive means to force ideas on the personnel of the school district." What do the previous statements mean to you?
Hi, first of all, I just want to say thank you to everyone for coming out and for organizing this event. So I would say this goes back to what is the role of the school board with regard to the superintendent. The superintendent is our employee, and so we must hold him accountable for his actions. We should be available to communicate with the superintendent to answer any policy questions. I would hope to have a good relationship and provide the same recognition and support to the superintendent as I would request that they provide to our teachers and administrators. Me personally, I am not a micromanager. That's professionally, I'm an assistant manager and store manager trainee, and I do not believe in micromanaging. You need to have faith in your team and hope that they are going to lead and be successful, but also know when to come to you with problems and for feedback.
Thank you. The next question, Ms. Charles. What responsibility should the school board assume in addressing the achievement gap?
Thank you, everyone, for being here. Very, very nice of you all to come out. I appreciate it. In addressing the achievement gap, basically, it's going to require everything that's been mentioned here so far. There are some very important things we have to do, and I think that including the teachers in decision-making is one of the key is key to student achievement, because the teachers are the professionals. They're the ones that are in the classroom. They're having things shoved on them without having a voice, and we can't expect kids to succeed if we're not listening to the teachers and taking their advice and getting input from them. We also need to try as much as we can to engage parents in education. Everyone knows that parental involvement is critical. However, it's very difficult. We recently had our first Hispanic listening session, and it was eye-opening, to say the least. You know, there's 33% of our population, some of the best behaved students and also some of the lowest achieving students, 33%. We found out in this listening session that the parents don't feel welcome in their schools. We found out that the parents can't communicate with teachers and with staff, and that oftentimes the students are put into classrooms and expected to learn without understanding a word the teacher is saying. So, you know, when you think about student achievement, if we could just bring up that demographic, that 33%, by providing for them what they need in that classroom, I mean, that would be huge. These people have parents that want to be involved. Parents showed up at our listening sessions. They were so grateful that we wanted to hear them, and I've given them my word that we're going to act on what we heard at those 2 listening sessions. And I think, you know, no matter what race the student is, what language he speaks, we have to be sure that those students are served. And that's what's difficult, is to serve every student, to provide what every student needs. I mean, that's key. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Chapney, you have the last question. The current Board of Education went against precedent to issue 1-year contract renewals for administrators instead of the traditional 2-year extension. Community concerns have been raised that this may lead to more staff turnover. Tell us why you agree or disagree with this change in contract practice.
Hey, thank you everybody for coming out tonight and hosting this event. I do agree with that board decision. I think it is really important that the new superintendent, Dr. Monroe, who's coming in, have the opportunity to take that 6-month time period to evaluate all of the administrators, take a look at what we need, what we don't need, where we need changes. The risk we take by not doing that is bringing in a new superintendent but not allowing any restructuring or changes for potentially 2 years. We're already behind the 8 ball. We should be further along than we are. We've been kind of, I feel like, spinning the same wheels. I looked back and watched some of these recorded sessions from 2009, 2016, trying to get prepared, and a lot of the same questions and the same answers came up. Why do we still have those same problems? We need to allow that new superintendent to come in and take a look at what we're doing overall. So I don't think the intention was as a threat to any administrators. I can understand why that made them uncomfortable, but I really think it was necessary to allow the superintendent to be a part of how we change and adapt going forward.
Thank you. That concludes the second part of the forum. Candidates, you have in front of you an envelope. Please open the envelope, and you will find a list of previously asked questions. Each candidate will have 3 minutes to respond to any question previously asked. You may expand on your answer given to your specific question if you wish to do so. Candidates, please read the question you want to answer out loud. Time will begin after the candidate has finished reading the question. I will begin this part of the forum with Ms. Champney.
Okay, 3 minutes, you said?
3 minutes to respond to the question of your choice.
Okay. I would like to respond to question number 1. From a board perspective, what is the key to retaining staff and improving staff morale? There's a lot of things that we need to do to retain our staff and improve staff morale. Generally speaking, our staff, particularly our teachers, have too many things to juggle and not enough time to focus on teaching. Prep time was historically 80 minutes. It is now less than 50 minutes with just one prep period. Teachers are spending a fair amount of their class period managing behaviors. Oftentimes, these are the same behaviors from the same students day after day. More support is needed to get behaviors under control so that teachers can focus on teaching their lessons and engaging their students. The board is already looking at revamping and enforcing the code of conduct in a consistent, uniform manner, and that will go a long way. Our district is set up in such a way that a lot of our intermediate school teachers are teaching 3 subjects, for example, science, math, and computers. That means that they have up to 150 unique students to get to know, students they have to build relationships with, and students that they have to differentiate their teaching style for. Then, of course, there's meetings and non-teaching related tasks that are part of the job, but I do think we're asking our teachers in the district to do more than some other districts in our area. Some examples are our twice-a-month professional learning communities, which are an hour and a half. Originally, I've been told that was presented to staff as a 1-hour meeting with 30 minutes of travel. But really, staff do these PLCs, professional learning communities, in their building, and they're using the full 90-minute time. So that's a little bit more than what was sold to teachers. There are also once-per-month professional development days. These could be made more efficient. Perhaps we could merge these with some of the PLC time, merge this with some of the PLC time. We need to ensure that the PDs are relatable and applicable. This might mean less large group sessions and more breakout sessions so that we can really meet the needs of all of the teachers and what they need to know and grow professionally on. We're trading valuable class time for this professional development, so we have to make sure it's productive and useful. On Tuesdays before school, there is technology meetings and staff meetings. In addition to any IEPs, teachers might be asked to join after school. And then one other thing that really takes up a lot of our teachers' time, though it is necessary, the Department of Public Instruction has 6 standards for educator effectiveness. This includes 1 student learning objective, SLO, and 1 professional practice goal, PPG. Yet our district requires 3 PPGs for our teachers. Add in any district initiatives or instances where a staff member agrees to serve as a subject matter liaison or a faculty leader for a student group or club, there just isn't any time left in their week. All of these additional responsibilities are put onto our teachers' plates with less prep time than they've ever had before. This requires significantly more personal time to be spent. There doesn't seem to be any give and take. Many of our professional educators who reflect on their past experience in other districts or leave to go to a new district express a sigh of relief that this is managed differently in other districts. We need to show our teachers.
I'm sorry. Time is up. Thank you very much for your response. Ms. Charles, is there a question that you'd like to answer at this time?
Yes,
Pardon me?
A question.
I understand that, but I was going to go around to each person and then come back if needed.
We have 2 minutes to answer any questions. Do I understand that?
You have 3 minutes.
3 minutes, okay. I'll start with question number 7. What is the main challenge facing the school district today, and how would you resolve that challenge? In my opinion, the main challenge facing the school district is inconsistent and unstable leadership at the administrative level, at the board level, even at the building levels. And how would I resolve that? Well, one way is what we just did. We set a goal to hire a new superintendent, and we set the goal to be March, that we would have a new superintendent sign a contract with our district. The board focused on that. We stuck to our timeline, and I'm really pleased to say that we hired a new superintendent who I think is going to be excellent for our district. So that's one thing that we have done. The other thing I think is that, you know, we had a turnover of board members last year. 4 board members in total resigned. And what we have done there is, after appointing 3 new members and having 1 member elected, so a total of 4 new members came on, we really made it our board's goal to focus on board governance. And all of us came together and said, we are going to learn the proper role of school board, and we're going to get along together. We will not agree on everything, but we will be respectful of each other. And so that's another thing that can be done and has been done. We have a board now that is cohesive. We have healthy discussions and debates, and when we walk out of there, there are no hard feelings, and we know that we can all come back and, you know, get along again afterwards, which was really missing. And so I'm pleased with the growth that our school board has shown. And, you know, regardless of what happens in this election, we will have a better school board in April than we did last April. I also...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. That's one thing. And then serving students of all needs, I addressed that earlier, you know, using the Hispanic population as an example, just one example, but there are special needs children, special education children. We have to serve all of these students. Teacher retention is critical. That to me is a huge challenge the district is facing. And we've touched on ways that we can keep teachers here. For me, the most powerful way to retain teachers is giving them a voice again in a district where they don't feel that they have a voice. And then student discipline is a major problem. And the board has dealt with that in forming an ad hoc committee to address this code of conduct, to rewrite it and to train staff in how to implement it. And we're confident that that's really going to help with student discipline. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Metter, did I misunderstand? Each person will have 3 minutes to answer any questions, more than one question that they want? I apologize. Ms. Chapman, I think that you wanted to just answer that one question?
I
Is
did,
that-
and I needed about 3.5 minutes.
Okay.
So I'm
Thank
good.
you.
I'm timed.
And Ms. Charles, I think you used your 3 minutes and answered.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I apologize for my mistake. Ms. Christopherson, you will have 3 minutes to answer any series of questions that you wish.
Sure, thank
Thank
you.
you.
I'm going to answer the first question, which was, from a board perspective, what is the key to retaining staff and improving staff morale? So this is a problem with many factors, not just a district problem. We need to build a strong relationship with the city of Beloit and be sure to market Beloit positively. If there is not a reason for individuals to come to Beloit, then they're not even going to look at the opportunities the school district has to offer. Our teachers and the new teachers we employ, we need to be sure that they are being supported and recognized. I've worked for companies that do not recognize their staff and then ones that do. And overall, the productivity, the openness for change, and the overall work product is so much better when you recognize that employee and appreciate their work. It will be imperative that the school board works with the new superintendent to foster a positive environment. Lastly, the classroom itself is their work environment, and we need to be sure it is appropriate and respectful. I would not want to go to work and constantly have to deal with physical behaviors and then have no administrative support or consistency. We need to develop a balanced disciplinary system that teaches our children the effective behavior and punishes them for said behavior when appropriate.
Thank you. If you have other questions you'd like to answer.
I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Miller?
Thank you. I would like to come back to what is the responsibility the school board should assume in addressing the achievement gap. So I see that there are many achievement gaps in our school and our community. I mean, so I would think that we would want to address. I'll bring up again, early literacy issues are tremendous. They follow students all the way through high school, and in fact, data shows that students who begin kindergarten not prepared literacy-wise, knowing their letters, understanding like basic phonics. 60% of high school dropouts are those students that started behind in literacy. So if we're going to talk about the achievement gap, I think really the key that we need to focus on is equity. We have data, we know the students that we have in our community, and I feel like it is a major part of school board leadership to be proactive, to research who those students are, who those families are, what their needs are relating, whether it's to generational poverty or whatever the issues are that students and families come with, and we need to be prepared to be responsive to those needs. I think the way that we do that is we rely not only on research, best practices, look at policies that successful school districts with similar demographics are already employing, but also by just being better community partners. I'd love to see more listening sessions. I was actually at one of the Latino community listening sessions. It was wonderful. I'm kind of surprised that this hasn't always been a part of board practice. I mean, I think engaging with your community, listening to your parents, and making sure that there's consistent outlets to make sure the community has buy-in in their children's education is of the utmost importance. So some examples of how the school board could be proactive in addressing achievement gaps would be by providing teachers tools to deal with like trauma-informed practice. Using, again, our own internal data. We talk about discipline issues. There will always be discipline issues. What are we going to do systemically to be proactive and prevent those discipline issues? How do we support our kids who are coming in without those skills to give them and develop and cultivate those skills so that they can be successful learners and feel safe in their own schools? We have the data. We have the ability to do these things. It has to be a policy-driven priority. And it cannot only be on our teachers. It has to come from leadership. We talk about the discipline issues and discipline data for, you know, we like to print things like, oh, there have been like 75,000, expulsion, or suspensions or in-school suspensions. That could be the same 10 students. And maybe those 10 students are having some issues that we could address and be proactive about instead of being punitive. So, I mean, I think to me, the way that we deal with achievement gaps is by using the resources that we have, using the knowledge that we have, and making students and equity the focus of what we do as a district. The last question in my 30 seconds that I'd like to quickly address is that I disagree with the decision with the contract decision. I think that I'm very excited about our new superintendent, but there should be some consistency, some institutional wisdom that we bring in, and I will stop. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Van Lendingham, you have 3 minutes to answer any series of questions you wish.
All right, thank you. We're going to backtrack to number 7, the main challenges. The district has many that we can talk about for eons to come forth, but I think our biggest one that we have to talk about is our discipline issues. Megan touched a little bit on that. But we have to hold the administrators, the teachers, the students, the parents accountable for their students, their pupils' actions within that classroom. We can't have great educators spending most of their time course correcting a student because of he's having a bad day. You can't discipline the other kids that want to get that education because you're spending all the time with little Johnny over here because he's kicking the cabinet because he woke up on the wrong side of the bed. We have to fix that. If we fix that issue, we fix the discipline within the classroom issue, we fix teacher retention, I believe. And we fix teacher retention, we fix student retention. We fix those issues in that order, and I believe we're going to be set up for a very successful district. We will be that district of choice that we advertise on our district internet page. How do we fix that issue? We got to hold people accountable. We have paras that we employ within the district to help those teachers, those educators within the classroom. Maybe it's time we look at employing more paras to help. We need to maybe think about removing those students and putting those students, those disruptive students, into an alternative classroom to get their education that is more specific, tailored for that particular person. Tailored education. If we can do that, we can give those kids that education that all the parents here, all the grandparents here know and love about our district, and we can give that because we are a great district. If we can do that, we can be on the road for success. The other question I want to touch on was do I agree or not with the one-year contract? Absolutely, I agree. If we have an administrator coming in that is just traveling, and he sees that one-year contract, that's the board saying, hey, I'm holding you accountable for your actions. If you don't produce, we have to maybe think of something different. It's all about accountability. If you don't hold people accountable, we're going to get what we got in the last 5 to 7 years, and that's a district in chaos. And that's not a word that I want to use when it comes to my district, our district. Chaos is not a good word. We need stability. We need accountability. We need to advertise and say, hey, yes, we have the test scores because that's my time. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Mr. Winkleman, you now have the opportunity, 3 minutes.
Thank you. Let me start with the role of the board. I think that drives a lot of the discussion that needs to happen as we move forward. The board is 7 people, 7 hopefully wise people who bring their knowledge to the table together and hopefully make decisions together with all 7 persons' input and knowledge taken into account and thoughtfully put together. It is not always an easy process. Sometimes it's messy, but messy is okay. I think the boards that I have sat on that were most successful were sometimes some of the most uncomfortable ones, right? It's okay to be uncomfortable, because for me that means we're stepping beyond our comfortable boundaries. We're stepping out of our comfort zones to think about education in new ways. Our new superintendent, the only employee hired by the board, right, is coming in, and this board, whoever ends up on this board, has to be ready to support that new superintendent, to help welcome them to the community, to help them understand the Beloit community from not just 7 perspectives, but from the perspective of all of the community, all of which is a part of the responsibility of the board to reach out and say, how do we connect you, superintendent, to the important pieces of the community that you need to know, right, that you need to know as you're gonna provide leadership to this district. That's a critical function. And I agree with Pam in some ways that the board has worked hard to kind of pull itself back together and start to function in good ways. But it is a critical function of the board, and it must be paid attention to be able to do that. We support the superintendent. We also have a role to hold that person accountable for what the goals and the direction of the district are, right? Strong leader at the top, I also think, comes along with strong leaders in buildings, right? That's a known practice that works, right? So strong principals who can support their staff, who understand their staff, who understand the children in their buildings, have to be part of that. And the board has to support that message, and the board has to support hiring strong principals and giving them the resources that they can use, and also being able to be uncomfortable and turn them loose when they have some great ideas to make things happen. 30 seconds. I think that the other piece that the board has to do ties into the kind of 3 actions to reduce that, and that is to understand that we have great students and we have great teachers, and what we need to do, and great staff. And what we need to do is make sure that every student in the district knows they have a support person somewhere in their realm, somewhere in their company. I think about some of the strong programs we can all point to in the community. Think about music, for example. They have strong connections. I'll stop there.
Thank you very much. Mr. Wong, you have 3 minutes.
Okay, I'll address question number 5. 3 specific actions. I don't know if they're specific, but the first one would be accountability and leadership, and basically setting a higher standard. I believe that over the past several years here, we've allowed our standards throughout the district to be lower and lower and lower, instead of raising it higher and setting higher expectations for all students, realizing that sometimes they will fail, and that's okay, but we boost them up and pick them up and move them on and help them up to learn more. As we all know, we learn probably more from our mistakes than we do from our successes. So, but I believe that if we continue to keep the bar low, we're not going to get anywhere. Accountability needs to be at all levels, and I think that this is something that has been very concerning to me, that it's as though there's no accountability anywhere. But I think that we have to, one of the areas that I look at is hiring practices. I think that we have to get back to very strict policies as far as how we hire people. I believe that we took that stance with the superintendent search. We had a very good outcome from that. I think that will prove out over time. But we followed a process, and we had a deadline that we had to meet, and we met that deadline. And it's that type of action. But when we deviate from those types of policies, hiring practices, that is when disruption will occur and when people will be upset. The second area would be, once again, getting in, it's been discussed over and over, and this is staff morale, but how to build up staff morale, I truly believe it's building. We have a lot of rock stars in our district. And I don't know if, and many of you, if you've been in the schools and talked to staff and principals, we have some really, really talented staff. And we need to empower them. We need to build a greater team. We have a good superintendent that we hired. If we can have a strong board, we have to have good building principals. And along with that, we need to have staff members that understand that they play a key role in this, in the success of this district long term. And we can use them to help them team up and help the younger teachers to come in, the ones that haven't maybe learned as much and haven't learned as much about various behavior issues in the classroom, to educate them and teach them. But building that teamwork within our district. We don't have to go out 50 miles to get an expert speaker to come in. We have a lot of great people in our community that we can use and we don't use at this point. The third area would be community involvement. I think that we've really, unfortunately, there's not been a great connection within the community. We've had pockets of strength from time to time in various areas, but I truly believe that we need to do a greater extent of that. And part of it is, I think the business community has kind of taken a step back to say, hey, I'm not quite sure I want to join that circus there. And so they backed off, and I really can't blame them. But I think hopefully going forward we can engage them to a greater extent.
Thank you. I will now begin the portion of the forum where audience questions will be answered by the candidates. Audience questions should not be personal or accusatory. Candidates will be selected randomly by the moderator to answer audience questions unless a question is directed to a specific candidate to answer. Candidates will have 1 minute to answer a question directed to them, and other candidates will have 30 seconds to respond to the same question if they wish to answer that question. We'll begin the first question with Ms. Charles. Our district has over 60% students of color. There is no diversity training required for staff. How will you implement this? And what will the preferred model be for said training?
Well, we do have, we have 60% minority students, but it's my understanding that our professional development days are largely dedicated to cultural issues and diversity training. So, I mean, I'm a little bit perplexed by the question, but I think we're doing an excellent job of that, an excellent job of promoting diversity and, appreciation for diversity and knowledge of cultural differences in our school district.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to answer that question? The next question will go to Mr. Wong. Why do you think changing the grade configuration would benefit the students?
Well, that's a question that's come up, of course. And I think that before we can go down that road, we have to have a lot of discussion with staff members, administration, and our new superintendent to determine if this is truly going to be the best fit for our district. We made this decision to change back in 2012 or 2011 it was, and it seems like we're always constantly changing. That seems to be the common thread in education. I think that we need to have a good discussion about this, and before we make any drastic changes, I'd like to have more parties involved in that discussion and final decision making on that. I feel like sometimes decisions are made in a vacuum, and I don't think that's correct. I think community involvement needs to be involved, but I think that we really have to rely on I truly believe our staff. I think our staff has to have a big say in it. To understand that, realizing that we have to look at bus schedules and there's a lot of other factors that come into play. So,
thank you. Anyone else wishing to answer the question?
I would like to. I think that it's parent-driven, this idea of reconfiguration, and I'm not against it. I need to hear more from parents, teachers, and the community. And one thing that it won't do for students is I don't believe it will improve student achievement. I think that that's what we're told, but I don't know of any research that shows that that would be the case. So there may be many reasons for it, but student achievement is not one of them. So this is a decision that I believe the board is going to hold off on until our new superintendent starts, so that he can be involved in the decision, and it will take a lot more time than one summer to implement.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to answer the question? Ms. Miller.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to echo what Mr. Wong said about being responsive to community and involving more community stakeholders in that discussion, parents and everybody else. I think honestly the very first question we need to ask ourselves about changes like this are how will they affect our students? Like that has to be the first thing. And there's a difference between continuous process improvement and being responsive to just throwing things out and starting over. And I think it's that kind of volatility that gives the school board a bad reputation and it hurts our district.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing? Ms. Champney and then Mr. Winkleman.
I actually agree with what everybody said, but I wanted to just kind of make a comment on Pam's comment, I suppose, about no research that shows that changing the configuration would affect student achievement. I agree with her, but I think what it could do, and it's worth a discussion, it could change or affect how we manage behaviors, which I think does have a direct impact on student achievement. And I also do like what Megan said, we can't just throw things out with the bathwater, but we also have to be willing to consider the possibility that we didn't make the best choice in 2012. I don't know if that's true. I think it's worth the conversation, but we have to be willing to be humble and admit, yeah, maybe things could be done differently, and that's okay. If it doesn't mean we made a wrong choice, it means we made the best choice we could at the time. Sometimes that's okay to change.
Thank you. Mr. Winkleman?
Sure. I think that I agree that it's worth a conversation, right? It needs to be evaluated. It's been out there for a while. I do think that it's part of us. I appreciate the conversation and the question because it makes us uncomfortable, right? So let's figure out why it does that. But I also know that there is research that talks about students in transition not doing well, right? So the more transitions a student has, the harder it is for them to settle in and do well. Now, maybe there's new data out there that says something different than that, but I also think it is an follow up later.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to answer the question? Thank you. The next question will go to Ms. Champagny. If you are elected to the school board, what would be your plan of action to get the school back on track in educating our children?
Okay. The first thing we need to do to address student achievement, I really think, is going back to retaining our teachers and improving our behaviors. And those things go hand in hand. We can talk all day about closing the achievement gap or improving our test scores, improving our report card, but until we have a change, I'll use Phil's words of chaos, they're my words too, a change of the chaos in our buildings, we're not going to see that change. We're not going to see our high achievers scoring better on their test scores because they can't focus in the classroom. We're not going to see, oh, darn, 30 seconds is short, or a minute is short.
It is. Anyone else wishing to answer the question?
Yeah, I'd like to answer
Please,
as well.
Ms. Miller.
Thank you. I think that we have to take a look at our children as whole children, and if we want to see academic achievement and growth, we also have to deal with their behavioral and mental health issues, and I think that we do that by creating systems, interventions that are responsive, using student data to respond to the kids that we have.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to answer? Yes, Mr. Van Landingham.
I'd like to add that to get the district back on track, I think we need to get the community, i.e. the parents, the grandparents, involved with our district more. We get the parents and the grandparents involved within the district. We hold more town hall meetings, more conventions such as this to get that dialogue started as to what the parents, the teachers, the students, what they want to do within the district. I think we can find growth in that and get our district back on track that way as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Charles?
Yeah, we have an extremely capable superintendent beginning July 1. And if I'm reelected, really my focus is going to be keeping our board functioning at a high level that we are and being receptive to the many ideas that he's going to bring our school district, because I think that he's full of great ideas, and I really look forward to supporting him, and we will hold him accountable, but we will support him as he brings us ideas. It's being receptive to those that's going to make a big difference for our school district.
Thank you. Mr. Wong?
It starts with leadership. If we've had our fair share of dysfunction, and we need to look ourselves in the eyes and in the mirror and say, hey, we need to shape up here. And if we, with Dr. Marino coming in and with a rock solid, hopefully, school board, and if I'm elected, hopefully I can be part of that as well. And I feel like we've had a good run at it for the last 7 months or 8 months so far. So I'm looking forward to hopefully serving again for the next 3 years.
Thank you. Anyone else who didn't want to answer the question? Thank you. The next question will go to Mr. Van Landingham. The STI rate in Rock County is one of the worst in the state for young people. With the data showing abstinence-only education does not reduce sexual activity, what sex education curriculum would you suggest for our students?
Well, that's a tough one. A little out of my wheelhouse, so this is good. I think the district right now, is doing a fine job of educating our young kids. our young adults in the high school levels about the sexually transmitted diseases and everything like that in health education. To be quite honest with you, that's out of my wheelhouse. But again, I think our educators, our great educators, are doing a fine job. Some of the statistics that I've read out there have shown that teen birth rates are down. I believe it was 13%, I believe it was. So that reflects what our great educators are teaching our young students. So.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to answer the question? Ms. Miller?
Thank you. I feel like we are not doing a fine job if the STI rate is climbing. And again, this comes down to being responsive to the community of students that we have, looking at data and dealing with those realities. So I would like to suggest that we create policies that encourage not only how to not get pregnant, but also how to be safe for all populations of students, so that we can be get them the best prepared that they can be to be successful as adults, not just to be good parts of the workforce, but to lead healthy and successful lives.
Ms. Champagny?
I think one thing we could do as a district is offer more community-type listening sessions or guest speakers, not just for students to come, but maybe parents. There could be parents out there that don't know how to broach this topic with their students, and maybe make a family night of it. It might be a little awkward, but come out and just give that opportunity to those parents that struggle with having that conversation with their kids.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Charles?
Yeah, we have a very comprehensive curriculum that was developed by an ad hoc committee, I think about 4 years ago, and I'm guessing on that, about 4 years ago. And I support that, medically accurate information for our students. You can't have abstinence-only education and call that health education, because even if kids remain abstinent when they're young, they won't always be. So we need to give them all the information that they need to remain safe.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to answer? Yes.
So I believe in teaching sex education in our schools, everything from parts to how to use protection. I would rather have students be informed and armed with facts rather than get themselves into a life-changing situation. Proper sex education does not encourage the behavior, but it does help prevent teen pregnancy and STIs. And I believe it's also important to have a discussion about consent.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to answer? Mr. Winkleman.
I think, so Pam mentioned it's a comprehensive program. I think it needs to be looked at, right, because it's evolving. Our students are evolving in ways quicker than sometimes we think they are, and sometimes we wish they weren't, right? So we think about, that makes sense. They're sooner, they know more sooner than we all did, I think, in some ways. So I think we have to pay attention to that question. And I also think that I appreciate the thought about engaging parents. I think about parents struggle at times with that question. And parents need to have an option to be able to have that discussion in their world with their value system to put together.
Thank you. Mr. Wong.
I would say that looking at what the education program we have at this point needs to be reviewed as well. 5 years ago, we didn't have the texting capabilities that we do today. The technology has taken us to different levels that we've never seen before. These kids are well educated in this area, and the word spreads rapidly. But I also agree that we need to get the parents involved. This is a very touchy topic with a lot of parents, and being a parent myself, those are interesting conversations, but they're very important ones.
Thank you. Did everyone have an opportunity? The next question will go to Ms. Miller. We seem to be concentrating on what needs to change and improve. Please address some of the success of the school district. Thank you.
That's a wonderful question. One of my favorite things about being in our community is bragging about it. And when I was a teacher at Beloit Memorial High School, I saw a number of wonderful opportunities for our students to be successful. One thing I want to brag about a little bit that I feel has gotten lost a bit in history is that we were the state model for response to intervention for literacy, the school district of Beloit. Working now at Black Hawk Technical College, I sit on a lot of committees, and I heard recently in a meeting that the basic skills classes, the ones that financial aid doesn't cover, that's often a barrier for students to get into higher education, used to be populated mostly with Beloit students, and it has dropped where it's like not even on the radar, and that's just from the perspective of Black Hawk Technical College, which it just shows that this like state recognized fabulous program that we innovated here in Beloit with our Beloit people for our Beloit students to be responsive using our data to respond to the needs of our kids is a fabulous success, and I think it's an example of just like the spirit and the innovation that we have already in our district for like people who are passionate about our kids.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to answer this question? Mr. Winkleman.
I mean, I thank you, Megan. I agree. We often forget about the positive pieces, right? I think about great math programs. It was, Math Stars, and many of the places that we're working in the STEM areas right now are awesome, and you don't see that in other places right now. The music areas, right? How often do we hear and celebrate what's happening in the music areas? And I think also you have to remember, I think our students' opportunities to engage outside of the classroom, right? How do we do that? We have so many opportunities for students to do that, that it is a wonderful way to build community within districts, within the school. That's all right.
Thank you. Mr. Wong.
We've always been our worst enemy. I don't know what it is about the citizens of Beloit, but we seem to knock ourselves down first. And there are a ton of opportunities within all the schools. I think that we just don't celebrate them enough. I know, speaking for myself and having two sons that have gone through it, one's a sophomore and one's in 8th grade, and the experiences that they have are fantastic. And I would tell any parent that they need to send their child here. But they need to be involved, and we need to be involved more as a community. So I think that, hopefully over time we can get greater involvement and get more groups involved, especially with the Hispanic group that we had this last week.
Thank you. Anyone? Ms. Charles, and then Ms. Charles,
okay.
First, and then Ms. Chapney.
We have some really excellent teachers in our district. We also have a very supportive community, and those are real strengths for a school district. We have the ability for students to take classes, college classes, while they're in high school, whether it's through youth options or AP classes. I think we have 30-some AP classes, and we need to be really proud of that. We also have an outstanding performing arts and fine arts department. Our jazz band, everyone knows, 8 out of 11 times they've competed for Essentially Ellington. They've gone to New York. So, I mean, that is definitely something to be proud of. Our fine arts, I don't know how many of you follow that, but it's absolutely outstanding what these kids are producing and winning national awards.
Thank you. Ms. Chapney?
I think a lot of people don't know all of the travel opportunities that our school has for our students, not just at the high school level, but down to even 7th and 8th grade. Think about being a 7th grader and hopping on an airplane to New York City with your friends and your teacher and not your parents. I definitely didn't have that opportunity. I'll be honest, I didn't get on a plane until my first job out of college. So I just think we have those opportunities for our students to see the bigger world outside of Beloit, and not all school districts offer that at such a young age.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Van Lundingham?
I'd like to add, like Pam said, that we have an outstanding jazz ensemble. Being part of that ensemble when it first was created was an outstanding experience for me, and that's one of the experiences that I'll have for the rest of my life. And I encourage young children, if they're looking to get into something, get into band. It will help you for the rest of your life. I attest to that. But we also got some great sports out there. Our great soccer programs are out there. Headed up by Coach Deneau. He's one of the top-notch soccer coaches in the state of Wisconsin in my book. So we have great, that's it.
You ended on a great word. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to answer? Yes.
I think my favorite part is seeing all the partnerships that the school district has with the city and like the YMCA with the swim program. I really love that they are actually thinking beyond now, which is really great to see. I love the partnerships.
Thank you very much. The next question will go to Mr. Winkleman. Throughout this campaign, one of the messages the candidates has shared is take back the classroom. Who are we taking the classroom back from, and how will you do this?
Great question. Take back the classroom. I think the classroom. I believe the classroom is a shared experience. I'm not sure it's a take back question, right? I think it's a how do we share this experience in the best way so that all students in the room are learning, and so that disruption is minimized. I appreciate the work of the committee that John is on and the board has started. I think that there are many teachers that have a great shared learning experience in the district right now. And helping those teachers and helping the younger teachers or the teachers that struggle engage students in a way that makes sense, engage students in a way that understands where they're coming from, hold them ultimately accountable, but also be clear. I mean, I think, if I listened to parents in the community for years, and as I've worked at the college, right, part of my role was around discipline. And that piece of the puzzle said, be clear with your expectations. And students will rise to those expectations most of the time. And so once we start to be able to be clear and reach out and work as a team to engage the classroom, we stand a good chance to change it.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to answer the question? Yes, Mr. Van Landingham.
Take back the classroom. Obviously, that's my slogan, so I own that. And by that, I mean we need to take back the classroom, get rid of the disruption, educate the kids, find that groove that each kid wants, yearns for. The kids don't come to school just to come to school. We need to give them that education. So if we get rid of the disruption, we get rid of the students that are cussing at our teachers, remove that situation, our great educators can give that great education. Take back the classroom.
Thank you. Mr. Wong.
But we also have to be mindful that we have a lot of kids in this city, in this district, that come to school with a lot of baggage, more than any child should have to. And we have to realize that maybe the standard and the traditional classroom isn't the proper setting for them. We need to realize that maybe there's some alternative settings. Pull them aside, get them the help that they need, and we need to get greater support in the classroom for that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Miller.
Thanks. Yes, I feel like we should be inviting people into our classroom to be collaborative for all students. So I don't think the answer is always just take the naughty kids out. I think that if we're going to make successful students, we need to maybe pull them aside, give them a behavior intervention schedule, and give them the tools and show them, because they may not know how to behave in that classroom. So who are we to deny our kids from an equitable education without teaching them how to behave? Because those kids come to school wanting to learn, so all students should have an opportunity to learn.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to answer? Ms. Charles.
Yeah, the board has heard this cry from parents and teachers, and we have responded by forming the ad hoc committee that will bring us a better code of conduct. We've responded by increasing mental health care in our schools for our students, and by revising the current code that allows for a little too much flexibility with the older students. We realize that younger students, the principals and teachers need to use a little more discretion there, but we wanted to firm it up a bit for the upper grades and to provide more consistency.
Thank you. Anyone else? The next question will go to Ms. Christopherson. What is your opinion, philosophy around the equity piece currently being implemented in the district's curriculum, professional development, and classroom expectations? Because there seems to be great pushback from the school on the importance of this endeavor.
Sorry, can you?
Yes.
Sorry, can you repeat the question for me?
Yes. What is your opinion, philosophy around the equity piece currently being implemented in the district's curriculum, professional development, and classroom expectations? Because there seems to be great pushback from the school on the importance of this endeavor.
Sure. So as part of transparency, I don't know too much about the equity stuff going on in the classroom, and so I'm not going to fill space and say that I don't, but I am going to take notes and definitely get back on that question. I would say, you know, it's important to focus on students, and so as long as the focus is on the students, that is the most important thing.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to answer this question?
Yes.
Yes, Ms. Miller.
So a moment ago, I spoke about tooling all of our students to be successful, and I want to say that we need to tool our teachers to be successful. So when we're going to make changes, we need to respond not only to the students we have, but to the staff that we have. These are people who have devoted their lives to educating our children, and that's valuable, and they deserve to be equipped to be successful. Change is uncomfortable. Real growth doesn't always feel good, but that doesn't mean it's not worthwhile. So if we're really serious about any kind of initiative, not only do we need to push forward and do what we know is best, but we also have to make our teachers feel like they have buy-in and support.
Anyone else wishing to answer the question? Thank you. Who hasn't answered a question? Everyone? I've gone all the way around? Because I had one card that I hadn't turned over, so I got lost.
It was, maybe it was Joe Walsh.
Who didn't?
Maybe Joe.
Joe Walsh, who isn't here.
Oh, that's why.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Maybe that was his question.
I'm going to mix these up. We have a couple more questions, so we'll continue. Mr. Wong, this question is for you. Sounds like a game show. The new Welcome Center and the rest of the Beloit 2020, now Beloit 200, campus plan has been controversial. Do you support the building of the Welcome Center? Furthermore, do you believe new sports fields are the answer to our declining enrollment numbers?
Well, considering the building's halfway up at this point, I think it's a done deal. So, short of us tearing it down, which I don't think would be a wise move, I think that, you know, moving the new center, the Welcome Center, it's up. It's going to be there. It's going to be a very nice welcoming to the community. I think that we need to look at that and say it's done at this point. The athletic fields, we have to be very careful about how we approach this. I think we need to look at our athletic programs as a whole and look at what we're doing there to build them up first. We can't spend a lot of money on fields and then not have teams to fill them. So, you know, we definitely got some work to do on the athletic programs, and that's been brought up already with the board about building more of a farm system, which I think we need to look at very seriously. I think it's unfortunate. I was talking to somebody yesterday, and I said the last 15 years we've seen a decline in our athletic programs, and it's really been sad. I think we can all look back to years, and you look at the banners, and they have dates dating back to the 1960s and 1970s, and it's unfortunate.
Thank you. Yes. Mr.
I just want to say that I oppose the Welcome Center for whatever it's worth, but it's halfway done, so not worth crying over spilt milk. However, the athletic fields, I believe when I've talked to the community members, when I've been out and about, you build it, they will come kind of thing has come about, and I'm a firm believer that that's not the case. I'm a believer of discipline, teacher retention, student retention, and then you build your athletic fields, and then it's the you build it, they will come kind of deal. And I believe for that wholeheartedly, that as soon as we fix one, the rest of things will come in line. And again, I get to stop.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to answer the question? Mr. Winkleman.
I think, so yes, as John said, it's already growing and going, right? I do appreciate the fact that it's in the middle of town. I think that sends the right message for Beloit, right? It sends a message that we're balancing what sometimes is a east side, west side question, and we're kind of planting that building right in the middle to say, welcome to Beloit, welcome to the schools. You're coming into the community to be part of that question. There has been if you've watched the board for a long time, there has been a long-term plan to acquire a campus, right? As you've watched the district slowly, when opportunities were there, acquire properties in front of the high school and kind of stretch out. So that campus is already growing to be able to make that happen. How it happens, we'll see.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to answer the question? Ms. Charles?
I think we got off on a bad foot calling it a welcome center. I mean, it definitely serves a purpose. It's going to be replacing our current administrative building, which is literally crumbling. If you walk into the Colac Education Building, you will see bricks falling out of the walls. I mean, we didn't have much choice, and we worked it in a way that it had very, very little effect on the levy. So it's going to serve a purpose for training teachers, enrolling students, parent classes, board meetings. It's a building that we need, and we had to replace the one that we have.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to answer the question? Thank you. The next question, Ms. Charles. Many of you advocate for community involvement. Past practice had community involvement in the superintendent search. That did not occur this time. Why?
We actually did have community involvement in our superintendent search. We hired a search firm after very careful consideration, chose a search firm, and then had the search firm come in and have community engagement listening sessions. And they heard what the community wanted. Everyone had an opportunity for input. As a matter of fact, there were even surveys that were sent out. So they brought that back to us. And we represent this community, so we took that input and said, this is going to be the type of person that we hire for our school district. That's exactly what we did. I mean, we are definitely focused on community involvement. We even changed our committee structure, our board committee structures this year, and we modeled them more after what the city does here, bringing teachers and community members and parents onto our committees, because we want to hear from the community. But we did the superintendent search in the best way we saw fit, getting the community input and forming a superintendent profile from that, and then beginning our search.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to answer that question? Yes.
Hi there. So I think the problem is the transparency component. Our school board and district is not very transparent. In order to gain the respect of the community, children and staff, we need to have an open door policy. We need to initiate conversations with the community in different areas within the community and build those positive relationships. We need everyone to be heard in order to improve our district. This is our city, our children, our district, and if we want to be successful, then we truly need to take a step back and evaluate our priorities and develop meaningful strategies to connect with the entire Beloit community. Lastly, we need to use the resources available. Why are we not using our Facebook page to broadcast the Board of Education meetings? Why are we not using social media for public comment? There are so many resources available, and thanks.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you. I feel like there's a perception versus reality situation here, and if there's a community perception that there wasn't community engagement, then perhaps the next survey and listening session should be about what are those accessibility issues that are perceived by the community, because if it exists in the minds of our community, then it exists. So if maybe going forward, there could be some restructuring and some outreach from the board to say, you know, why do you feel like the board isn't reaching up? You know, because we have these opportunities, but what are the access issues there? Like, are they the wrong time of day? Do we need an interpreter? You know, all that sort of stuff. And I think that that way we could be a little bit more responsive and maybe get us all kind of in the same shared reality rather than argue about perception.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Van Landen.
Touching on what Amy said about the whole transparency, I believe the school district is not as transparent as one would think they are. We need to get that out there more. We need to poll the community. Statistically shows that surveys end up in the trash. Mailers with survey information, they end up in the trash. Nobody returns them. So I think we need to advertise more to the community around to show that, hey, we want to do this, this, and this, and we want community input. And we need to put everything that we have on blast and get that out there to show the community, yes, we are open to your input. We want your input. Bring it to us. Tell us what you want to do.
Thank you. The timekeeper has timed me out. So that is the last of the audience questions. Now, Each candidate for the Beloit School Board will now be given the opportunity to give closing remarks. Closing remarks will be limited to 2 minutes, and I will begin with Ms. Champney.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. This is a really exciting time for our district, so I'm really happy to be a part of this and hope that continues. I'm running for the Beloit School Board because I believe in the talent we have in Beloit. Our Beloit teachers need an advocate. They are the difference maker for our kids and the key to improving our student achievement. Far too many talented, passionate educators are leaving our district. We need to stop undervaluing and overloading our teachers. We keep looking for that solution to improving our achievement gap and improving overall student achievement in our district. The solution is to ensure we are creating an environment that allows the highly trained professionals that we hired in this district to do their primary job. Our children are the future, as the saying says, and we need our passionate, driven Beloit School District teachers to prepare them for that future. If you support talented teachers, if you support our talented students, and are ready for the school district to reach its potential, vote for Tori Champney on April 2nd.
Thank you very much. Ms. Charles, 2 minutes.
Yes. I am really enjoying my service on the school board right now. We have an excellent school board, and I'd like to continue serving. I have a total of 6 years of board experience. I've served in various capacities, clerk, vice president, and I'm currently the president of the Beloit School Board. I am passionate about what we're doing and what we're capable of doing. As we bring our new superintendent on, I want to be a part of that. I have a great relationship with him already and would love to continue. We've had a lot of change in leadership lately, like I said, at the board level, at the administrative level. And the last thing we need right now is a lot of change in the board. We're a cohesive group. We're getting a lot done. And I think that it would be best to have as many board members return as possible. I have the experience that I bring. I have the time to commit to this role because it does take a lot of time. And I care. So I would really appreciate your vote on April 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Christopherson?
There we go. Okay. All right. I am running for Beloit School Board because I want to be a voice for educators, families, and ultimately students. The vitality of our community is directly tied to the public education we provide, and I want to see Beloit flourish for many years to come. Educators deserve a safe, respectable, and supportive work environment. We rely on them to care for our children, and we put our trust in their hands that they are doing everything they can to shape our children into productive members of society. As a Beloit School Board member, I will fight to ensure a sound, consistent, and optimal environment for educators so that they can focus on the #1 priority, which is our children. And I believe it's also equally important to support our special needs families and students, whether they are in district or have an out-of-district placement. They deserve to have a stable environment, and we must ensure that there are proper supports in place to achieve academic success. As a young disabled student, I will bring a different perspective to the Beloit School Board because I can relate to our children and we share similar challenges. As a step parent, I can relate to the struggles parents face every day sending their children to school. I will ensure educators are being respected and supported in and outside of the classroom, that students are being given the best chance for academic success, and that the school board is being responsible with funds and using other methods to engage educators, students, and the community. Citizens of the City of Beloit have supported our school district historically, and it is vital that we continue to enhance the education our schools provide. I appreciate you hosting this forum tonight, and I appreciate all of your time. I've enjoyed getting to speak with you, and I appreciate your support, and I look forward to serving you on the Beloit School Board.
Thank you. Ms. Miller?
Yes, should probably turn my mic on. Thanks to everybody for coming out tonight, and thanks again for the event. So I moved to Beloit in 2010 to come teach at the high school, and I have to just honestly say that I've fallen in love with this community. I have a mother of 3 daughters. I'm really happy to be raising them here in our Beloit Public Schools. This community has offered me so much, and I really feel indebted to it. I became a teacher because I'm very passionate about empowering people. I want to empower our students to lead successful lives, personal relationships, jobs, whatever it is. And I think that the role of our school board then is to empower our community to make that possible for our kids. When I volunteered for the Beloit Public Library, I started a literacy task force called All Beloit Children, ABC. It's kind of cool, ABC Playgroup. And it's because I firmly believe that that is our role. It's to serve all Beloit children. So I guess I just want to say that empowerment comes from an equitable education. We need policies flexible enough to respond to the range of needs that our students have. And I'm a Beloit proud person. I'm not from Beloit, but I'm so happy to be here, and it would just be a privilege and an honor to serve on our school board, and I hope I can count on your support on April 2nd.
Thank you. Mr. Van Landingham?
Once again, I'd like to thank everybody that come out here for this. I'd like to thank the NAACP and the League of Women Voters for having us out here. I've lived in Beloit all my life. I graduated high school in '98 right here at Beloit Memorial, so I know what it's like to be a Purple Knight. Purple. I know what prestige is, and back when I graduated, we were it. We were the district that everybody wanted to be at. And I want to bring that back. I want to bring back that for the community, for the board, for the teachers, for the students. I want to be a part of something better. I love the district that I'm in. I got 2 boys that attend, one at Fruze and one at Todd. And I want to be able to give them the education that I got when I went through the district. The district's got a black eye on its face, and we need to correct it, and I want to be part of that. I want to be part of that greatness that we have with the new superintendent coming in, with some of the stuff that the board has started to implement already that has that ball rolling. Let's be part of this. So vote for me April 2nd.
Thank you. Mr. Winkleman?
Sure, thank you. Thanks to the League, thanks to the NAACP for hosting the forum, thanks for all of you that came out and anybody who's watching at some point down the road. We have work to do. We have work to do in the district. We need to celebrate our successes, but we still need to pay attention to the work that's there. Just finished reading a book by about Joe Madden and the Cubs, those of you that are Cubs fans. And one of the things he said during the season they won the series was embrace the target. We need to embrace the target, right? Not shy away from it. We need to know that it's uncomfortable, if it's uncomfortable, and get into it. And that means jumping into the things that need to change, supporting change when we can see a best practice in front of us, and keeping in mind that we need to focus the learning on what's best for all students. Again, making sure that students can thrive within the district, because we know that not all of them do. And that means that a wide variety of things, but it also means that we need to keep moving forward in that area. We need to adapt what we do so we can challenge students to be the best they can be and learn the most that they can learn. Engage them in that learning, right? That engaged learning process is there. We need to support the superintendent as they bring new ideas, because that might make us uncomfortable, and that's okay. And so the board needs to be ready for that, and we need to, again, empower the superintendent and building principals to run forward with that question. We haven't talked much about it tonight, but we need to think carefully about money and where it's spent and how it's spent. And I know that I have done that in the past time on the board, and I commit to doing that again. We need to pay attention to that question. Who knows where the state budget will go now, but we're hoping that perhaps there might be some relief in that picture. But we still have to pay attention within the community of what we're doing. I spent quite a few years on the board, and I learned a lot in that prior time on the board. The most important thing for me that I learned was to listen carefully, to not dismiss ideas, to seek alternate points of view, and to know that 7 members will create a successful board. I will listen well, spend carefully, support the new superintendent, and remain focused on what's in the best interest of every child. And I hope that you could consider me as you vote on April 2nd.
Thank you. Mr. Wong?
I, too, would like to thank the NAACP and the League of Women Voters for putting on this event tonight, and everybody for showing up. I was born and raised in Beloit, grew up on the west side of town. I went to Converse, I went to Lincoln, which is now a historical building, and then I went to the high school and I graduated in 1984. went out of town and came back. I've run a successful practice here. My wife, who graduated from the other school in town, we reside on the east side. We have 2 kids. We have been very involved, basically to some extent over-involved in the community and the district as a whole. I've shown my skills and leadership ability as far as with the, anybody that's been part of the Kids Against Hunger program. That's my baby. We've been working on that. I was one of the founders in this area of that, and then over the last 10 years, we've put on some phenomenal events at the high school. But we've also led in other ways, and my wife and I give her a lot of credit, and she's my rock, and she really helps to keep me. She's shown me things that are incredible, and I appreciate all the help and love and support she's given me. But what I've realized in this community is that, this is a very diverse community, and we need to be open to everybody. And I think that that's one thing that I really try to do is listen and keep my eyes open and understand that everybody has a different opinion and that you won't always be right. My experience on the board this last year has been phenomenal. People ask me all the time jokingly, oh, how's it been on the board? And my comment back to them is I've really enjoyed it, and I thoroughly say that with it's been a lot of fun. I mean, we've not always agreed on everything, but it's been enjoyable getting to know everybody on the board and serving the city and the district of Beloit. I hope that everybody sees what we've done up to this point and can help me to and vote for me on April 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to thank each school board candidate for your participation in tonight's forum. And thanks to the Beloit League student members for attending here tonight. We applaud you for your interest in the election. Thanks to the NAACP Beloit chapter for sponsoring tonight's forum. And thank you, members of the audience, for your attendance and participation. Good evening.